Hello and welcome to the Woodard Report podcast, where we enrich businesses through business advisors. This podcast is your source for information and news you need for your accounting, bookkeeping, or tax practice, and it is proudly sponsored by Woodard. The Woodard membership program will help you build your ideal practice with our coaching, education, community, and resources. We'll get you there with strategic direction from experienced pros, access to skill building and resources, and a community to continually inspire your practice's transformation. And now your hosts, Joe Woodard and Heather Day.
All right. So if this is your first episode hearing about my partner in crime here, Heather Day, that is the same Heather that you've always known, but she has gone to her maiden name, which I think is so cool.
Thanks,
and
Joe.
saves a lot of characters when I type her email address in. So that helps too.
It's just so much easier to spell. It's very difficult to misspell
one
Day.
T that ended in a Y. I'm sure that you're so tired of spelling your last name.
Yes,
It's just the coolest name ever, especially if you've read or watched Foundation, because Day is the most powerful of all the emperors. Yes. You have day, dusk, and dawn. So I just think there's so many cool things about that. Not to mention the fact that one of your very best friends is named Dawn. So now you just need to go find a dusk and you'll have a complete trifecta. All
Absolutely.
right. So today on our podcast, we're going to be doing the same thing we normally do, only with Heather Day instead of Heather Satterley. We're going to be talking about current events, and then we're going to pick our TV and movie quote that's given us some profound wisdom for you over the past week. The excellent thing we learned this week. We're going to try to stump each other with two truths and a lie. Heather's going to cover our member spotlight today because among her many other hats she wears here, Coach is one of them. And she's going to pick her favorite Woodard Report article of the week. So Heather, what are you seeing out there with current events?
Yeah. So Joe, I was reading accounting today, this morning, and yesterday they posted an article about the BOI. Remember our good old BOI that we talked about a couple of years ago?
PTSD on BOI.
Exactly. Well, here's the final ruling has happened, and they've thrown it out. So they've taken pressure from the current administration and the AICPA, who said this is really causing too much, pressure on small business. So they've thrown it out. So you no longer are required to file BOI. And another really interesting thing is they're going to be deleting all of that data. So apologies to, I'm sure there's apologies, not my personal apologies, Joe, but apologies to everybody that put so much effort into bringing their clients to compliance. We no longer have to do this. So it's the nature of
what I find very interesting about this too, and I was never a fan of BOI. I didn't think it should have happened. I think it was trying to solve a problem with the wrong medication, and that was money laundering. And it was not just to over medication, it was the wrong medication for that problem. However, what I find interesting about this politically is it was passed by Congress in a bipartisan way, in a way that would have broken any veto. I can't remember the exact numbers, but it was well over 2/3. And yet it was still reversed. So it's interesting to see. I guess that's the checks and balances of our government, because it was tied up in so many legal suits. We do have a check on Congress, but it's just usually when Congress does something that strongly, it is locked in. There's nothing you can do about it. So interesting twist and turn here. And, we did have people that opened up entire businesses just to manage this in perpetuity. So it was highly disruptive for the profession if they were treating it as an ancillary. But then for those few people that built up entire business models around it, it was highly disruptive for them. They probably lost a lot of money on those initiatives.
They probably did. And I mean, it also comes back to the clients that they were serving. If this clients had paid them for this service that's no longer applicable,
that's where fund all those retainers. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So it's tough. All right. So in my case, it's not like anything new. It's just the biggest of what we've been hearing about. And that's where KPMG has bought CBiz for the largest dollar acquisition in the history of our profession. $5 billion they paid for a single firm. So if that's the largest acquisition in history, what does it say to us? It says that there's no slowing down on this market aggregation. It is reshaping the profession, and it's going to leave us with the same three things, Heather, we've talked about before, and that were covered at Scaling New Heights in detail. We're going to end up with three kinds of accounting and bookkeeping service to the market. We're going to end up with the large, big box, small business, simple return kind of structure. And that might be Block Advisors, it might be QuickBooks Live, but it's going to be a done for you, a lot of AI thrown in there. So, up to a certain complexity level, people are just going to think magically. It's always been magical. I have a transaction and it posts to my financials. Why wouldn't it always be that way? Why do I need a human in that loop? Or if I don't really stick a human in the loop, I stick a corporation in the loop. So that's going to be the lower end of the market. And then everything up above that complexity level is going to get consolidated into these massive conglomerates. I think we'll still have a top 100, but I think the 100th largest firm in the world is going to be, 10, 15, 20, or 100 times the size it is today. And then when we see what's happening with the big four are, we might see our first $1 trillion CPA firm at some point in the next 10 to 20 years. So as all of that market aggregates, think like Wellstar, Piedmont. Look what happened to medical when everything began to consolidate into these super powerful corporations. What's going to be left is this third category. And listeners, if you didn't like categories 1 or 2, listen, because category 3 may resonate with you. And that is going to be the rise of the boutique firm. And boutique is not necessarily an industry term, but it's kind of flying around in the zeitgeist. Is not saying that I am small. Some of these boutique firms may be very large, but that I have a distinctive story. If you think about a boutique hotel as compared to a Holiday Inn or a Fairfield by Marriott next to the airport, one has a story, the other one doesn't have a story. And that story will carry the day. And there will be people like me. When I travel, I like to go to boutique hotels and I like to know what their story is. We're going to one for our company offsite, Heather, as you know, in New Orleans. I could have gone to the Marriott, the Sheraton, or whatever in New Orleans, but I picked an independent boutique hotel with a powerful story because that story is part of our experience. We did it last time at the Algonquin. So those kind of relationship based and unique and differentiated firms will thrive in this new normal. But it means you have to constantly innovate. It means you have to tell that story. You have to be different, and you have to be highly relational. If you find yourself acting like QuickBooks Live and like Block Advisors and the like of them, where more is more, and I'm going to make it up on volume, doing as simple work as I can that's sort of repeatable as possible, you're not going to survive that. And on the flip side, if you're trying to act like a top 50 firm, when you aren't a top 50 firm, you can't keep up with their R&D. You can't keep up with their technology innovations, and you don't have their capital because you're not PE backed and they are. You can't compete against that, CPA firms. You've got to find that vision, mission, and purpose that resonates, and then build a practice around that kind of culture. Be client first. Hire the best people who have the soft skills and want to transform people's lives and businesses and protect their journeys. Make it real, make it personal, and thrive in that spot, that boutique spot.
I could not agree more, Joe. We've seen this in other industries where things got really big and the people, the buyers said, nope, I don't want big. I want boutique. I want specialized service. I want specialized products. Look at the success of Etsy, right? Which is a platform that people go to buy specialty products, and it's doing very, very well. Now, have we seen, large companies kind of infiltrate Etsy? We have, but it's still, that's what that's what a lot of people want. So one question that I have, and it's an interesting question, I don't know the answer, is with the big four, acquiring these top 100 firms, and we start to see, this consolidation, what does that do for independence? Right? Because that's a big part of what we do in the CPA realm is our independence. And if we're bringing firms in, it used to be that the rules have changed. I get it. But I'm wondering, at what point do we see that as a threat to the integrity of the profession?
Well, what we're seeing, and Heather, you probably noticed this as well, that the firms are spinning off their audit departments into separate
They
corporations. Now, that doesn't create complete independence because you have similar ownership, but what it does do is it facilitates cross referrals. So now my peer slash competitor can refer the audit work to me, but it's not going to my core firm. It's going to my wholly owned subsidiary, and there's a clean room environment on there. Plus, it has a different set of exposure because lawsuits related to audit are the risk is significantly higher than the rest of the practice. So you can insulate yourself with the corporate veil. But you're going to see a lot of the cross refers going. Of course, that's already happening in the top four too. They cross refer audit
do.
attestation across among themselves. So there's going to be a kind of a handshake, don't get out of your swim lane kind of deal that we're going to see people leaning into more and more. I think the bigger area of independence, and this may be the one you're referring to, is when we start deploying AI in with our clients, and that AI is essentially a worker. And if it becomes more and more defined as a worker and not a technology, then are we conducting services that are less than arm's length? And if those services have management implications or actually perform management services on behalf of our client, have we lost that kind of independence? That's that could be a whole episode of our podcast just talking about that.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And I think it's just going to get muddier and muddier.
Muddier and muddier. And I think
Muddier and
then
muddier.
where you see mud, you're going to see increased regulation. It always follows. We have to kind of watch that game too.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to the TV and movie quote of the week. All right, Heather, what are you watching out there?
So you quote House of Dragons a lot, right? You do, and so I am ready to watch season 3. So I didn't rewatch season 1. I started to, and it was just too gory for me. I'm like, I've already done that. I'm not going to do it again. So I'm watching season 2, but the quote that I have is from season 1. So, and it's a good quote actually that kind of ties into what we were just talking about. It's the scene where Rhaenyra has just been seen in public carousing with her uncle Daemon, and she's talking to her father, King Viserys, and he's lecturing her, and she's saying, "I didn't do anything inappropriate." And he says to her, "The truth does not matter, only perception."
Hmm.
And this is one of the core parts of the AICPA Code of Professional Conduct, which is tied to independence. We have to appear, prudent both in fact and, through appearance. So that's one piece of it, which ties into what we were just talking about, which I think is going to become more and more important. But the other piece of this that I think is really relevant to many of our listeners, Joe, is how we communicate to our value to clients is also super important, right? So we talk so much about changing the narrative of our clients from compliance deliverables to, actually walking the path with a client, protecting their journey, Joe. But we need to make sure that we're not just, talking the talk. We also have to walk the walk, right? So, I'm encouraging our community to be careful about the words that they choose when they're talking about the services that they provide, when they're having the conversations, to make sure that they're switching the narrative from "I'm going to keep you compliant" to "I'm going to walk this journey with you, and I'm going to keep you safe, and I'm going to be there with you as only a human can be there with you." And so I think that is something that we're really going to have to pay attention to and change our mindset shift, because, in the appearance, right? Truth doesn't really matter, only perception. Is if we're using AI in our firm and we're doing a lot of compliance work, right? I'm not suggesting that we, like I said, just talk the talk. If we put out there that that's where we're leaning in for our firms, with all of this other technology innovation happening and these DIYs and the bots doing things, if that's where we're leaning in our messaging, we actually could be doing ourselves a disservice, even if we're implementing that technology in our practice. So, that is going to be something that we have to navigate, but we have to be careful and we have to be more intentional than ever about how we frame our messaging
Yes,
to the
or control
market.
our brand. I mean, that's the word that it comes down to.
Exactly.
We have to do
Exactly.
brand management on what it means to be a firm in this new world, this new strange new world, as we kind of themed it out for Scaling New Heights. And that gets me to my show. I'm watching Strange New Worlds, and so in Strange New Worlds, which is a prequel to Kirk's Enterprise, and same Enterprise, same Spock, same Uhura, but it's led by Captain Pike,
Great
not
show.
by Captain Kirk. Oh, it's a great show. Yeah, absolutely. And that's canon. Pike preceded Kirk. We all know that as Trekkies. But there's a scene in this where the captain of the Enterprise is taken captive on a strange new world, and he's subscripted to forced labor. And when he began to kind of rally the others around him to say, "Hey, let's break free, let's escape," things like that. Standard trope, land on the water, get water. I mean, land on the planet, get kind of enslaved, and then try to break free. But what he said here in response to the people was interesting. They said, "We won't survive, at least here, where we are conscripted into this forced labor. We will survive." And he said, "There's surviving, and then there's living. It's your choice." So folks, there is an alternative to the path you're on. You can live your fullest life, the life you were meant to live. You don't have to be enslaved to the particular rock you're banging on right now, just because by banging on that rock, it means that you can subsist in your life. It's the path, however, involves risk.
Yes.
And that's the heart of the captain's message. You can survive or you can live. If you will put risk in between those two, you can pursue a life that is fulfilling for you and high impact for others. That's how you break free. Just do the thing that is different from what you're doing and will get you to your goal. Go to Woodard Summit or join Woodard. Of course, that would be something that would help you, we believe, or we wouldn't be in this. Go to that conference, read those 3 or 4 books, get that certification, whatever it may be. But do the thing, embrace the risk, measure the results, and walk the path, and you'll live a better life.
I love this, Joe. You can see me smiling from ear to ear because this is something that I really strongly believe, and it's a life. There's a point in your life, and people reach this point at different times in their life where they realize they're in control and they get to decide. Um, Hopefully, people learn it sooner than later. I guess some people don't ever learn it at all, but I think it's something that is just so important to really fully becoming who you are as a human. And yeah, fear is that's
Yeah,
the wall.
fear is what stops us.
That's the wall.
Yeah, but if a risk is measured, if it's calculated, if it's incremental, at least you've taken it. Even if the results are painful to you, at least it's an acute pain you can work through, you can learn from, you can try again. But to do nothing is pretty much guarantee your existence will stay the same. All right, so now let's move on to the excellent thing I learned. Heather, what'd you learn this week?
All right. So, as the director of education and media at Woodard, part of my job is administering our CPE for the Scaling New Heights conference and for our webinars. And so, there's some big changes that just rolled out on August 1st. So, NASBA is they changed some of their regulations, and the big one that is going to affect practitioners is they're going to start allowing 1/2 credit CPE sessions. So they have micro sessions, which is how you can listen to a podcast and get partial CPE, but for live sessions. And this is a little bit, well, it's not even worth mentioning, is they're also grouping group live internet with group live in-person training into one category, which really doesn't affect anyone except for folks like us who offer CPE. It just helps us to streamline things across all the programs that we provide. But this is important because under the old rules, you had to attend a minimum of 50 minutes and earn 1 credit.
Then you could start doing half credits.
Exactly. Yes. Well, now that's changed. So you can now attend 25 minutes and earn a half credit. and then you start adding cumulative. So I'm not going to go into all the dirty details of this, but this is a big deal because a lot of folks look when they're taking the CPE, they're like, how much time do I have to get the CPE? And now you're able to get it within 25 minutes, which is great. So what that can mean is if you sign up for a webinar that's 1 hour, and you're only able to stay for half of it, you could potentially get half of a CPE credit for
Or
that.
we could start seeing some micro learnings come in, some 30-minute
Yeah.
webinars that aren't as intrusive on your day. You can get in, get out, get your half credit, move on about your day.
Absolutely.
I think all those are going to start to merge. As a matter of fact, I wouldn't be surprised if we don't start offering
Yeah.
half-hour webinars now.
Yeah.
They're more bite-sized. They fit into your day better, and now we can offer CPE for them.
I think it's going to change a lot of things that we're able to do at Woodard, and that's Joe. We need to have a long
We'll figure
conversation
all that
about
out.
that.
But
But
by indication, we have a lot of peers out there doing a lot of training, so you're going to start seeing this
definitely.
reshape the way you consume education.
So this
Plus, Earmark has already proved you can get CPE credit for listening to a webinar. So now those webinar episodes could be 30 minutes.
That's right, and podcasts, right?
Yeah. Podcast.
So
I meant to say podcast. Yes.
So here's the thing, this is effective as of August 1st, 2026. So it is effective today. However, this is going to be a slow rollout, right?
Yes.
So any new programs that are rolled out, those they have to have these new rules in place by March 1st, 2027. So there's going to be a window there, but anything that's existing. So any webinars, trainings that you're taking now, or that you have training or programs that you've been in that are published with NASBA, they have until November 1st, 2028 to come into compliance. So we're going to see, I think that we'll probably see a lot of innovation happening as, the different providers.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other thing I want to stress, if you're listening to this, if you're going to a current 1 hour long webinar that is structured to give you the CPE keywords over the course of that hour, don't just presume now, based on what we're talking about here, the new rules, that you can leave in 30 minutes and be okay, because that company did not structure it to give you the number of keywords that were required in the first 30 minutes necessarily. So wait for them to tell you it's a half credit event. It's structured to be a half credit event, then attend. Or you can
100%.
attend the full credits now, but just wait. Don't leave early until that's the set duration. Okay, very good. That's exciting, actually, and that's one of the new things I learned this week, because I didn't know that ruling had changed. So thank you, Heather. So me, I'm a big AI junkie. I love to read about stuff going on in AI. And in Richard Susskind's book, Richard Susskind is Dr. Daniel Susskind's father. He's been writing on AI a lot longer than his son Daniel, since before Daniel was born, actually, on the very early manifestations of AI. And he's got a book called How to Think About AI. And in that book, he lays out 5 different hypotheses. Now, we are living, Heather, in one of 2 of the first ones. That's typically where I see humans as well as accounting professionals. Some people don't even know that there's a 3rd, 4th, and 5th evolution that we haven't experienced yet. Some people don't believe that it will evolve beyond where it's at. But let me give you all 5, and that way, and then I'll tell you what Richard Susskind thinks about where the evolution will hit for sure. So one evolution of AI, or one stage of AI, phase of AI, is the hype hypothesis. And in the hype hypothesis, the people that subscribe to this, they believe that today's AI frenzy is overblown and will fizzle out. It's going to lead to an AI winter. It's going to be the next .com bubble burst. The only difference is there's not really much on the other side of the .com. At least .com did emerge into cloud, and there was this whole segment. They think it's just bubble's going to burst. It's going to end up being a little tool we happen to use, and it's always going to be, relegated to that sort of peripheral role in humanity. Now, I will let you know if that is what you believe. I strongly recommend that you read books that don't just confirm that bias. Read books that challenge that bias, and then see if that belief holds, because I am 100% convinced that is not the future of AI. It's not even the present of AI. All right, but this is where most people live. They might have lived in the hype hypothesis, but it's kind of hard to ignore what's happening around us. So the generative AI hypothesis, it's the Gen AI plus hypothesis, because we all know there's Gen AI out there. But what's the plus part of it? That means current generative AI systems will keep improving, and they're going to become more reliable. That means existing architecture, wide deployment. They're going to deliver major productivity gains. But watch this. The people that subscribe to this are saying all that'll happen without fundamentally evolving beyond what we have today or changing the way we work today fundamentally. I also do not believe that one's true. I believe that's the present reality of AI. I don't believe that's the future of AI. Then the next phase is AGI, or general intelligence, artificial general intelligence. In AGI, the people who hypothesize this, and Richard hypothesizes this, he believes this is going to happen by the year 2030, 2035 at the latest. So, and he's extremely well researched. So if you even think what he's saying could be true, you really need to listen to what your life's likely to be in 4 to 9 years. AI systems will reach full human level general intelligence, matching or exceeding human capability across a whole range of intellectual tasks: language, reasoning, perception, problem solving. Richard Susskind thinks we are very near to this AGI. And if it doesn't happen by 2035, it will happen eventually. It's all just comes down to date horizons at that point. Now, beyond AGI, which I personally subscribe to and believe that that timescale sounds about right, or it might be a little conservative, actually, given the exponential growth of AI. The two that I'm not sure about yet are superintelligence hypothesis. Once systems reach AGI level ability, they'll rapidly surpass human intelligence altogether. That's both individually and collectively. And they're going to then develop capabilities far beyond what we can even comprehend in every field. So they will completely surpass us in a way that will almost seem magical or amazing, developing technologies, doing work that advances us by hundreds of years every decade in development. That's the superintelligence hypothesis. And then there's the singularity hypothesis, which I think is the most bizarre. But look, we've seen so much bizarre lately. Humans and AI will effectively merge. It will become cyborgs. We will incorporate the technology into our brains, into our bodies, becoming bionic, and we will fuse our neurons with the superintelligence, so that now that would be the only pathway that the superintelligence has to get to the emotive side of experience. So we would bring the emotion, it would bring extreme superintelligence, and we would have the next evolution of the human race as a result of that fusion. That's a lot. So if you listened and you thought that was interesting, then go read the book. If you didn't think it was interesting, just understand that we are already at this generative AI plus stage, and we are headed imminently into the artificial general intelligence stage. You're still on a roller coaster in the middle of the ride. You are not coming into the end of your ride right now. Keep riding the ride. All right, Heather, thoughts on that whole big brain dump?
Well, first of all, mind blown. And it sounds a lot like science fiction that I've been watching my entire life
Yes.
coming to fruition. So, wow. One of the things that popped into my head, Joe, a couple of years ago, you and I took a course at Brown. And I remember our professor was talking about AGI. And at the time, this was back in 2024.
I think.
It was
Yeah.
2024, spring of 2024. He had said that AGI was not possible. Do you remember that?
I do.
And I remember him saying, he didn't say it's not possible today. What he said was he didn't think it was ever going to be possible.
Yes, I remember that.
So, yeah. So I think that that's something I'm like, oh, okay. So, he was a top leader in AI. So I'm interested. Now I want to go read the books. It's
Yeah,
like, what is
and also has his opinion changed? That's what I'd really like to know.
Yes. So
Yes.
what's changed? It's exactly what I was going to say, Joe, is what has changed between, spring of 2024 when we were at a Brown level course to now. And so I'm very interested in reading this book. So as far as the super intelligence and the singularity, my brain, I honestly, I think if we can't, it says right there, we can't comprehend it. So
Mhm.
you have to get on board with the fact that there's something that we can't possibly
Yeah,
comprehend.
there's a future. There's a future here beyond our comprehension. The
Exactly.
question is just how much does art meet life when it comes to science fiction?
Yes.
Don't know. I
Right.
really believe that I won't live long enough to see super intelligence, or that my daughter won't either. I'd be short changing the entire trajectory if I believed it were to never happen.
And hearing you say that, where I also jump is if somebody told me 3 years ago that we would have AI capabilities that we have today, I
Yes.
wouldn't have believed it,
Yeah, I wouldn't have believed
and
it
I didn't
either.
believe it.
Yeah,
So
exactly. So anything is
yeah,
possible. Anything's possible.
agreed, agreed. Yeah.
Okay, with that, it's time now to try to stump each other with two truths and a lie. All right, Heather, try to stump me.
Okay. So thing one is I'm going to talk about the dog days of summer because we're kind of in them. So the dog days of summer originates from the Roman age when hunting had to happen early in the morning and late in the evening because it was too hot for the hounds to work effectively, right? Because they would get too hot and they could not hunt down the things that they needed to hunt. And I mean this is true to this day. You typically do that early in the morning.
Mhm.
So that's how it came about. Um, and thing two is the Romans called this time, and I'm probably not going to pronounce this correctly, but dies caniculares, dies caniculares, which is basically dog day, right? In Latin. And thing three is the dog days of summer traditionally run from July 3rd to August 11th.
Okay. Well, I should know thing three. I mean, because, 58 years in this life experience of the dog days of summer, but, I honestly don't know. I do know this is a really hot window. But, hmm. And thing one seems plausible. Um, Thing two sounds very Latin. So that makes sense. I'm going to go with thing two just because it's so Latin, being true. And I've got to narrow it down to thing one or thing three. And I'm going to say that thing one is correct, but thing three is the lie.
Well, Joe, I stumped you again.
You always
So
get me. This is weird.
so it's thing one, and I'm going to attribute this to me being a good storyteller, at least today. The Dog Days of Summer actually has nothing to do with actual dogs. It has to do with the star Sirius, which is part of the constellation Canis Major, which means greater dog. And it does originate from Rome, from the Roman times. So July 3rd was the first time that this constellation was actually came into view, and they coincided that with the heat of the summer, so the hottest part of the year for them. So that was
Oh,
the
that's
origin
exciting. That's
story.
fascinating. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, all right. Awesome. All right. So I just got back from a trip to Disney World. We go several times a year, annual pass holders and all that stuff. And I learned that Disney is opening up several new lands. Now, if you've been to Disneyland is actually a group of multiple lands. So you have theme parks, and inside the theme parks, you have lands: Frontierland, Tomorrowland, Fantasyland. Okay. So just kind of level setting for those of you who've never been to Disney. So inside of these theme parks, Disney's opening up some new lands. All right. Two of these are actual. One of these is not actual. So we'll see if you can figure out which one. So the first one is Disney is launching a Cars land based on the Cars movie franchise. It's within Frontierland inside the Magic Kingdom. So the Cars land will be in Frontierland. Number two, Disney is launching a Zootopia land based on that movie franchise in Animal Kingdom. And number three, Disney is launching a land called Monstropolis, which is based on the Monsters Inc. movie franchise in Hollywood Studios. All right, which one is not the real land?
All right. That not the real land. I was thinking I had to pick one, but I actually have to
You have to
pick.
pick the
I
one
do
that
have
is
to pick
not
one,
the
but I
real
have to pick
land.
two that are real.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go with, I really hope, because I have no idea. So I'm just going to be guessing here. I'm going to hope that they are creating Monstropolis because I love Monsters Inc. And that just sounds like something they would do. So I'm going to say that's true, because I really hope that that's true. And then the others are okay. So the others are hard. Cars Land and Frontierland could replace, what was that place in Frontierland that is really old? And I think they were shutting it down. I think there's one, I can't remember the name of it. Joe, you probably know the name of it, but the old one that had like, it had a gas station in it. In fact, I think it even had a Dynaco in it. So I'm going to say that they're replacing that with Cars Land in Frontierland. And I think the lie is that there's not going to be a Zootopia.
So I don't know how you do that, but you always win. There, that's so believable too that they would put Zootopia in Animal Kingdom. I thought,
Yeah.
that would definitely get you. So there is going to be a Monstropolis in Hollywood
Yay.
Studios, and you're even going to have a roller coaster that kicks you through the floating doors.
Love it.
There's going to be a Cars Land inside of Frontierland, which I find to be very weird. What a weird placement, but it's true. And it's going to be where they used to have Tom Sawyer's Island.
Oh.
Yes, they're filling in all that water. They're taking away the big paddle boat, taking away the raft. You
Okay.
go over to Tom Sawyer's Island, and they're creating a Cars Land there.
Huh.
But no Zootopia in Animal Kingdom.
Okay.
Now, what's kind of my comment on this? We don't always have a comment where there are two truths and a lie, but there's a business principle here. Never stop innovating. When Steve Jobs said that the great companies are really built on two pillars, innovation and marketing. Everything else comes down to delivering on what you promise. So Disney, could just stop innovating and ride it out for the next 50 years and make a tremendous amount of money. But every time you turn around, they're doing something different. They're building something new. They're imagining something that stretches us. And that's what makes them one of the most innovative companies in the history of the world. All right, let's move to our member spotlight. Heather, who are we featuring this week?
So, Joe, I am just so lucky to be working with Jennifer Mitchell and Eve Pickett from Account Sense. Jennifer's located in Florida, and she has a CPA firm, and she actually learned about Woodard after a 10-year CAS workshop. And she's been implementing the five-fold model in her practice. And we've been working together on this. Now, I want you to keep in mind that she is celebrating her 20th year in business. So it's not a new practice. This is a 20-year-old practice that she is implementing this CAS, model into. And it's been a challenge, but she has risen to the challenge. So she has successfully created and is implementing the packages, the CAS packages and the pricing. And she really is dedicated to the transformation. And the cool thing is she's doing the work, and it's hard work because when you have a book of business that is based on the compliance deliverables, and you're looking to change that to more of a relationship true CAS framework where you're working with them on a much deeper level, that is a big value discussion, right? And so when you go into that, you have to understand that you're going to lose some clients that just don't, that don't either don't need that or don't think they need that. But she and her team are absolutely committed to this, and they've been doing all of the hard work. And one of the things I just want to say about, Jennifer is that she's such a brave leader. And she's such a great leader, and she makes changes within the organization with absolute intention, super strong leadership. She pulls her team in to discuss, the SWOT that we talk about before they implement the change. And she's just very, very intentional about and realistic about what is the right next step. And so it's, I'm really excited. We've been working together now for almost a year, and she's making so many strides now. And just in the last about 6 weeks, she has successfully pitched one and is onboarding several clients now to this new CAS
To her new
program.
model. That's great. It's
Yeah,
great to see the
it's
boat kind of come under sail like that. So
exactly. So I love working with both, Jennifer and Eve. They are smart, powerful women that have built something really amazing. And it's just such a pleasure to see them, have this dream, have this direction, and then be able to fully implement it through the hard work they're doing through our practice advancement program.
awesome. Awesome. Well, congratulations, Jennifer. You're doing great work out there. And we appreciate you being a member of Woodard. All right. We're going to wrap it up like we always do by Heather picking her favorite Woodard Report article of the week. What's your favorite, Heather?
So my favorite article this week is written by our own Deb Deffer. And she wrote an article actually about the session that she taught at Scaling New Heights this past June, which is the strategic client onboarding, where advisory success really begins. And what she digs into this article is she speaks to the mindset shift that we need to take to really stop looking at onboarding as an administrative workflow to a relationship building opportunity. And so she provides tips in the article on how to use the process to learn more about new clients and really make sure that you're staying true to your firm values and the direction of your firm so that you are guarding that front door, and also bringing excellence and extreme value to your clients. So awesome article, a lot of really good, juicy takeaways in that article. So very, very well done.
Nice. And she lives that all the time. She's
does.
She's onboarding our clients, which are the firms, and then she's coaching them to onboard clients. And some of her clients have thousands of clients. So her concepts are pressure tested at scale. Strongly encourage you to go read it. Well, Heather, that's a wrap. That's the podcast for today, and we will see you all next time.
See you later, everyone.
Thank you for joining us. For more information about this podcast and its sponsor, please visit woodard.com/podcast.